There's a Seinfeld episode where Kramer and some of the characters on there are dealing with a person in a coma, and someone has to make the decision whether or not to disconnect life support. So they go through what a lot of us go through in a time like that, where you begin to think about, well, what if that were me? And who would I trust to make that decision? If I'm in a state where I cannot make a decision for myself. Well, if you're a minor, your parents are going to make that decision for you. If you're a married person, most likely your spouse is going to make that decision for you. If you are the child of an elderly parent and their spouse has already passed away, it may fall upon you to make that decision for a parent. I remember my father being conscious enough to help make the decision before his open heart surgery, and we weren't sure. We weren't sure. And the night before they were going to pull the plug, I mean, that's what they call it. I remember going in to see him, and he was all gray and really kind of out of it, and he said, "Look at me, boy." He said, "Stressing, working yourself to death, running everywhere, smoking, not eating right, ain't worth it." Well, the next day, he pulled the plug. He did all right. He had surgery. It's been 20 years since then. He's lived 10 additional years beyond his life expectancy with this heart surgery. But he forgot what he told me, because 5 years after he got well, he started smoking and eating wrong again. Turned into my dad again, which was a nice thing in a way. But it's funny how we think then. On Seinfeld, they make it funny. Kramer says, "If it's me, pull it, Jerry," he says, "like yanking the cord on a lawnmower," he says. So my friend Kevin is a great Seinfeld fan. He loves Seinfeld. It's almost like a Bible for him sometimes. He doesn't read the same Bible I read. Sometimes I'm the only Bible that he does read. And he doesn't have a lot of friends, and he doesn't have any family left. It's just Kevin. And so he says, "I've got 2 friends, and you're one of them, and I'm not taking applications for any more." Okay, I get it. And I found out how much he thinks of me, because I'm the guy he said, "You're it. You're the guy that's going to make that decision for me." I said, "Okay, Kevin, we need to talk. I want to make sure that I honor your wishes to the letter when I say, like starting a lawnmower, baby." And he said, "Well, slow down a little bit. Don't get in a hurry. If one kidney's still working, give me a chance. But if they both go out, well, wait and let me think." So we even signed a piece of paper. What a grave day in my life. I put my name on the dotted line. I'm the guy. If he gets ill, call me. I'm the one who'll say, "Pull the plug on him." What the heck? It's Kevin. And then he said, "Now I've got this funeral plan out here at the local funeral home." And he said, "I don't have any family, and I got 2 friends, remember. I'm not taking applications, so I'm not looking for the funeral service to grow in numbers." And he said, "I don't need a funeral." And I said, "Well, that's okay." And he said, and they're going to just take me out there, and they're going to bake me down into ashes, and they're going to put me in a little box. And I said, "Yeah, and then they're going to call you." I said, "Me?" "Yeah." "Okay, and then I don't care what you do." What do you mean you don't care?" "You pick me up in the little box." I said, "Well, what do I do with you?" Well, take me out there and bury me where my son's buried." I'm like, "Kevin, wait a minute. It's kind of illegal for me to be digging in a cemetery." "Oh, you're just lazy, man. Go at night." I said, "It's still illegal at night, Kevin." And he said, "What, are you afraid of the dark?" Well, I mean, like, Kevin, please. I finally got real with him and said, "Can I pick out an urn, since it's going to have to match my furniture, because you're going to be in my living room until they have my estate sale." That's the kind of friend that I am to Kevin, and that's the kind of friend he is to me. And I laugh and I joke about Kevin's life, but I love Kevin. He loves me. I'd do anything for Kevin, including carry his ashes home. This week, a friend of mine came to me and he said, "A friend of mine passed away." And I said, I don't think I knew him. And he explained to me that he had met me. I'd given him an autograph at a concert or something once, and I still had to confess I didn't know his friend. And he said, I want to have a memorial service for my friend. He said his family has had nothing to do with him in so long now that when they cremated him, he said, I have his ashes. And I thought, well, that sounds familiar to me. And I thought, what do you do at a funeral service or a memorial, as he insisted it would be? And it really was. It was a nice place to be yesterday. What do you do if you don't know the person? And I thought, but I know my friend who asked me to help him honor his friend who I didn't have to know. What a great thing. If you died tomorrow, here's that. If you died tonight. I think you can trust God. The question is, who will come to your funeral? If there was nobody to pick up your remains, who would do that? Is there one friend in your life who would step in if everyone else had abandoned you and say, we're going to honor this person because they needed to do that? They needed to complete their commitment to you in such a way? It's surprising how many people don't have that kind of support around them. I remember when my grandmother was very elderly, and those of you who know me know how close I was to my grandmother. She was like my own mother. And she called me in to her bedroom one day, and I sat down in a little chair beside her bed, and she said, son, do you have a suit? And I said, Granny, gosh, I think I was in my 20s, and thought I was a rock star. I'm like, I don't own a suit, gosh. She said, well, I want to buy you a suit. And I said, why would you buy me a suit, Granny? I'm never going to wear the thing. She said, yeah, I need for you to have one for my funeral. Well, Granny, you're not going to die anytime soon. She said, you never know, but I want to be prepared. And she said, you need a suit because I have 6 grandsons, and I want to ask those 6 grandsons to be my pallbearers. And I said, I can't do that, Granny. There's no way. I said, I'm so close to you that when you pass, I'm going to have the hardest time. And it's going to be all I can do just to deal with it. I'm not going to be able to be one of those pallbearers. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she said, son, this is the last thing you can do for me. I got to have somebody to get me from the hearse to my grave. I can't get there alone. Well, that's all she had to say. I looked good in that suit. And I reached up there and I grabbed one of those bronze handles right along with everybody else. And the 6 of us, the grandsons in the family, we carried my grandmother to her grave. And I remember always, that's the last thing that I could ask you to do for me, son. I need this help. I need this help. You know, there are other examples of this in the Bible that probably work better, but I couldn't get around it this week in this scripture. That this woman comes to Jesus needing a miracle. And she's not a Jew. She's not of the house of Israel. The thing you're not catching in the story, perhaps, is that Jesus is not hanging out in Galilee or Jerusalem or even Judea at all. He's crossed a boundary. He's crossed a border. He's gone somewhere where he does not belong. Rob Bell would talk about him carrying the disciples out to these Gentile towns and temples, believe it or not. And they're walking along going, oh, we're good Jewish boys, and if our parents knew where we were going right now, we would be so busted. And here comes this woman who has no right to ask the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God of the Jews, for a miracle. But she comes anyway, and here's the striking thing. She's not asking for herself. Maybe she wouldn't have even asked. I don't know. Had it been for her, maybe she would have said, no, I don't deserve this. That's not my... But you know, if it's somebody you love, you'll do anything you have to, won't you? I remember when I was a single parent, and I went proudly through the grocery line with those food stamps. Proudly, because it wasn't for me. I had a 4-year-old daughter at home that had to eat. When it's for someone you love, you don't care what you have to do. You'll do it. And so this woman comes to Jesus risking insult. And you know why I know she was risking insult? Because Mark tells us in the passage that she endured insult in her conversation with Jesus, the Lord of Lords, the Son of God, insulted this woman. And she stayed in the game. And she said, not for me, Lord, but for my daughter. And not just for my daughter, but for the Gentiles. And not for the Gentiles, but for the dogs of this world who even get to eat at least the crumbs that fall from the table. What a great response. Obviously, because Jesus is moved by that response. And the woman's daughter is made well. In the second story you heard, the man is deaf. The man is a deaf mute, and he cannot even know by hearing that Jesus is coming. Maybe he saw the poster on the telephone pole at the street corner that said, Jesus will be here Friday. Except this man is a Gentile in the first century, and he probably couldn't read if there were a poster or a telephone pole to post it on. No, someone else who heard, someone else whose ears were open knew, and they grabbed their friend by the hand, and maybe without him even knowing where he's going, or maybe they're trying the best they can to gesture to him in whatever broken sign language may have existed. But they lead this man to Jesus. He's mute and he can't even protest. And there they take their friend to Jesus. There are better examples. You know, people tearing roofs off of houses and lowering their friends to Jesus. There are all kinds of examples. Even these last 2 weekends, we have had friends who have attended Emmaus walks. And for all that can be said about Emmaus, some have been very suspicious of the political nature of that community, because you don't get in without having a sponsor on the inside. And I don't know why that it's designed that way, but it doesn't trouble me when I read it in context to these passages, that it takes a friend who has experienced, whose ears have been opened, whose tongue has been loosed, and whose demons have been driven away, and whose family has been restored. It takes a friend to come and say, you know, I want to share with you. Unfortunately, I think it happens because we like to use language like, you need to go on this. You need to do this. And people just sort of have an aversion to being told what they need and what they want and what they don't need and what they don't want. But really, behind all that broken language and misdirected good intentions, it's really at its finest moment a friend coming to a friend and saying, God has blessed me in a way that I really can't describe to you, but I want to share it with you. Boy, we could use an injection of this around here. I remember, gosh, it was glorious. I remember when we couldn't wait for Sunday. We called each other through the week. It was like, can we do this song next week? What are you going to preach about? Can I say something? Can I give a testimony? And we just couldn't wait. And then we would come in, and Sunday by Sunday it grew until there was 125 people in here, and people would come to visit, and they'd find us hugging on each other and slobbering all over each other, and they're like, wow. This place is amazing. One man called it the house that love built. What happens that we're not excited anymore? Do you know how difficult it is to explain to my children that God is something to desire in their lives? You don't want it. You know how difficult it is to tell people who have been hurt by church that this is a place where they can find healing and affirmation, because most of the time, well, maybe not, hopefully not, at least some of the time, that's not what people have found. Maybe if our faith were more animated, Maybe if we were more animated in our faith. Maybe if we didn't have to stop and say, yeah, I'm going to church Sunday. I can't really come to that because I go. And yeah, it'd be nice if you came. I think I know why people came then is because when they caught us on the phone on Wednesday giggling with somebody, hanging up, and they go, who was that? That was a guy on my praise team. That was a girl in my Sunday school class. And we were talking about this Sunday, and they saw the excitement. I don't know what to do. I don't know if you fake it. I don't know. But sometimes I think, at least with this younger generation, that we want something because someone owed it to us and not because they wanted to give it to us. I see my kids do that all the time. I can try to give them something and they don't want it. But they'll turn around and kick and stomp their feet and demand the very same thing and accept it if I owe it to them. But Jesus even offends this woman in saying, God does not owe you anything. And she says, but shouldn't I at least get crumbs? Jesus didn't have to loosen the ears of any deaf man. God wanted that. God desired that. The Apostle John said that God loved you before you loved God. God didn't wait and say, oh, I love you because you're one of those people who loves me. No. God said, I love you, period. God did not save one of us, redeem one of us, transform one of us, start one church, send one Savior, make one gesture toward humanity because humanity was owed anything. But it was because God desired. And God has poured blessings out on you because God desires to bless you. Not because you wanted it, probably not even because you asked. Now here's the way to grow a church. You go home this week and you meditate on that. And by the end of the week, you determine your relationship to God and to the local congregation based on how you respond to that kind of love, to that kind of mercy, to that kind of grace. I'm going to close with this one piece. I said this yesterday at the funeral. Beautiful passage from Romans 8. You know, there's nothing, life nor death, principalities nor powers, evil, sin, nothing in the past, nothing in the present, nothing in your future, no angels, no demons, nothing in this world or any other world. Absolutely, I think you get the point by now. Nothing that can separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. And I love the way the Celts simplified it. My beautiful wife keeps this Celtic proverb hanging on the wall in our kitchen. It says simply, whatever falls from God's right hand is caught firmly in His left. That is the scandal of grace. Determine your response to God this week in the face of that kind of love. And others will want to know what in the world happened to you to get you so animated.